There are mysteries that feel unreal, stories that sound like fiction, yet every detail is documented, photographed, and confirmed. This is one of those stories. In the quiet city of Rio Branco, Brazil, a story began to unfold that would capture the world's attention. It started in March of 2017, when a young man named Bruno Borges made a simple yet profound decision. He locked himself inside his bedroom. For 24 days, his family respected his privacy, assuming he was deeply focused on his studies. But as the silence stretched on, their patience turned to concern. When they finally forced the door open, what they found was a scene of profound mystery. Bruno was gone, and the room he left behind had been completely transformed into something else entirely. Bruno was a 24-year-old psychology student known for his sharp intellect and insatiable curiosity. He wasn't just a casual reader. He was a deep diver into the most complex subjects imaginable. His friends and family described him as quiet and introverted, but with a mind that was constantly racing, exploring the fringes of philosophy, metaphysics, and the very nature of human consciousness. He was searching for answers to life's biggest questions, and he believed he was on the verge of a breakthrough. A few weeks before his disappearance, he told his family he was working on a special project. He asked them for funding, a small investment in an idea he was convinced would have a lasting positive impact on humanity. He said it could change the world for the better. But when they pressed him for details, he remained elusive, insisting the work had to be completed in secret. Then, with his project underway, he locked his bedroom door and vanished without a trace. When his family finally worked up the courage to open the door to his room, a palpable coldness spilled out into the hallway. They had expected to find him inside, perhaps asleep, or simply lost in his work. Instead, what they discovered was a scene so bizarre, so utterly alien, that it defied all rational explanation. They were not just shocked, they were profoundly disturbed. The room was a canvas of obsession. Every wall, from the floor to the ceiling, was covered in a dense tapestry of symbols, all meticulously handwritten in a stark crimson ink. There were thousands upon thousands of letters forming words in languages both known and unknown. The script was precise, almost unnervingly neat, betraying a focused, methodical mind at work. It wasn't the scrawl of a madman, but the careful notation of a scholar charting forbidden territory. Interspersed with the text were strange, complex diagrams. There were geometric shapes layered over one another, intricate spiral charts resembling galaxies, and what looked like arcane astronomical maps. Alongside them were unknown codes, blocks of cipher that nobody in the family, nor the investigators who came later, could recognize. It was a visual language of Jago's own creation. But what was most jarring was the emptiness. The bed, the desk, the chair, the bookshelves, all of his furniture was gone. It hadn't been pushed aside. It had been completely removed, leaving faint outlines and scuff marks on the floor as the only evidence it had ever been there. The room was a hollowed-out shell, stripped of all personal comfort and transformed into a stark, ceremonial space. And in the absolute center of this void, standing like a silent sentinel, was a life-size statue of a man in a philosopher's robe. It was a haunting, stoic figure, gazing forward into nothingness. It was later identified as a replica of a monument to Giordano Bruno, the 16th century philosopher, astronomer, and mystic, a man who theorized about infinite worlds and alternate realities, and who was ultimately executed for his heretical ideas. The statue's presence felt like a declaration, a key to the entire puzzle. On the bare floor, Arranged in a precise grid around the statue were 14 massive, leather-bound notebooks. Each one was filled coisas to the brim with the same red ink, the same cryptic symbols and encrypted writing that adorned the walls. It was clear this was not just a spontaneous act, but the culmination of a long, exhaustive project. A recurring symbol, a unique signature mark, confirmed that Bruno had written them all himself. This was his life's work, condensed into these volumes. The official investigation only deepened the mystery. Forensic teams confirmed the single door was locked and bolted from the inside. The windows were sealed shut, also from the inside, with no signs of tampering. There was no sign of a struggle, no forced entry. Struggle, no forced entry. No struggle, no coercive or their source of trees, leaving behind only his research. It was as if Bruno had simply stepped out of our reality. In the months that followed, a dedicated team of linguists, cryptographers, and researchers began the monumental task of decoding his writings. The notebooks became their primary focus, hoping to find a clue, an explanation for his impossible disappearance. Slowly, they began to make progress. Some of the translated pages discussed the nature of consciousness, proposing that the human mind was not bound to its physical form. Bruno theorized that with intense mental discipline, humans could evolve, transcending the limits of physical reality. Other passages were even more direct. They spoke of the next stage of life and laid out what appeared to be a step-by-step methodology for how to consciously, deliberately leave the material world behind. It wasn't a metaphor. It read like a technical manual for ascension. In the vacuum of information, theories began to swirl. Many believe Bruno staged his disappearance entirely, transforming a thought experiment into a real-world performance to prove a complex philosophical theory about perception and existence. Was this all an elaborate piece of theater designed to make us question our own reality? Others point to the strange symbols and texts found in his room, suggesting he was influenced by occult knowledge or secret societies. They argue he wasn't just studying these ancient groups. He was actively participating in a ritual, one that required him to vanish from the known world. And then, there are those who believe he experienced something far stranger, a phenomenon that defies conventional explanation, a deliberate separation from physical existence, perhaps a form of astral projection or a journey into another plane of consciousness. While the world debated, his family waited. His city searched. The story of the missing student philosopher hit national news, captivating and unnerving the public. And then, weeks later, as abruptly as he had vanished, Bruno reappeared. He simply walked back into his family home, physically unharmed, but profoundly changed. The relief was immediately replaced by a storm of new questions. No one knows where he was. He refused to say who, if anyone, had helped him, offering no details about his whereabouts or his experiences. When pressed by family and authorities, he only claimed that his project was a success and that he was now working on the next phase. But the question remains, did he attempt to leave reality, or was it all part of a plan no one else could understand? The message he left behind seems to suggest one thing. We are far more than we believe we are. What do you think? Was this genius, madness, or something we're not ready to understand?